There are three things you can be certain of in life: death, taxes, and the people that run rugby union not to be able to agree on absolutely anything. And yeah, here we go again. Welcome to civil war between North and South, if you believe the reports. Slightly cynical on that. I'm not sure. Are the SANZAR unions really going to be opening up lawsuits and demanding compensation from the Six Nations countries? Not sure on that, but it makes for a good headline and makes people click through on a story, doesn't it? But we'll wait and see. But what we can say is, and what this story is the deal that would have seen £800 million going into the coffers of the top teams being blown out of the water by the Six Nations, who do not want to sign up to a big finals weekend extravaganza Super Bowl of rugby that would take place in Qatar. I haven't actually talked about this on the channel before, mainly because, I don't know if you remember, but World Rugby in their wisdom decided to announce this story, or maybe they decided to bury this story, again, call me cynical, by announcing it during the Rugby World Cup. Not just during the Rugby World Cup, I think it was immediately after, or it was either just before, the Rugby World Cup semi-finals. So I remember I had the channel, I was there with Egg Chasers out in France. I took the channel there, I was amongst the fans and in the grounds and bringing you a load of content. And I remember thinking, do I talk about this? And I thought, no, I'm not going to let anything get in the way of the biggest, the pinnacle of our sport, the Rugby World Cup. So I thought, you know what, I'll leave that for another day. But today is that another day, because this story has emerged, where what was being proposed as part of this new Nations Championship format is the top 12 teams in the world, the Six Nations sides, plus the Rugby Championship sides, and I think it's Japan and Fiji, would play in a 3-day tournament with 2 double-header matches in Qatar, with a grand final being the showpiece event worth £800 million, plus all the TV money. Qatar Airways signed up to be a title sponsor. Qatar Bank and Qatar Energy wanted to be commercial partners. It was going to be huge money, and do you know what? I need to go back one more step, don't I? Because, yeah, what is the Nations Championship, if you haven't heard? The Nations Championship is all those nations I mentioned every other year playing in a global tournament to crown a Nations Champion. So in 2026, it will be the first one. Then it will happen in 2028, 2030, and so on. And it works by the Six Nations sides playing each other, and then playing the other teams in the Rugby Championship, Japan and Fiji, in the July and November tests, ending with a big finals weekend, which is what this deal was all about. Yeah, dubbed a Super Bowl of rugby. Obviously, Qatar has hosted the Football World Cup. It's taking more and more big sporting events, boxing matches, and all the rest of it. And it wanted rugby to be part of this move to get big sporting events there. Digging a little bit deeper into this story, it appears what's happened is, again, if you believe the reports, the SANZAR nations were all signed up and like, yeah, we're in. And the Six Nations have said no, but actually on closer inspection, it appears like it's France and Ireland that have said no. England were kind of 50-50, and Wales and Scotland were actually quite open to the idea. So what do you think about just the idea, before we even get to this disagreement between North and South here? I'm sympathetic to the whole concept of it from a financial perspective. I mean, I'm in England, where 4 professional clubs have gone bust, 3 in the Premiership, and one of the best teams in the Championship in the division below, gone bust. So money is not a wash in rugby. There are unions around the world in debt, and I think that's part of the reason why South Africa, New Zealand, Australia were signed up to this, because they could do with some money, thank you very much. And it's not just in England, it's not just the national unions. Everywhere you look around the world, there are financial issues, and rugby is not growing in the way that people hoped it would overall as a global sport. It's taking footholds here and there. There are some wins, but overall it could be doing a lot better. So I'm sympathetic to the money. I'm sympathetic to creating this big spectacle that it would. The flip side is I just look at it like this. So Nations Championship, the top 12 teams, and in 2026 you're going to crown a Nations Champion. And then in 2027 you're going to have a World Cup where you crown a World Champion. And then in 2028 you're going to have a global competition where you crown a Nations Champion. Either the Nations Championship is not going to mean have the prestige that they're saying it is going to have, or the World Cup is going to be devalued in terms of its prestige. Another issue I have is growing the game, something we talk about all the time. I mean, let me go back a step, talk about the Tier 1 nations and stuff. The fact there would be a Nations Championship in 2026 and 2028, and in the middle you'd have a World Cup. You'd also have Lions Tours in 25 and 29. And South Africa and New Zealand are talking about touring each other's countries in other years as well. So suddenly an already congested calendar gets even more congested potentially. And scarcity has a value. Look at the NFL. They only play 17 games a season. I think it's like 18 or 19 if you win the Super Bowl. That's how many games you'll play. And it's worth billions. Scarcity has a value. And I think that's a switch that rugby needs to flick. And sometimes I just feel like rugby's trying to grab all the money it can while it can and not think 10, 20, 30 years in the future. And I've talked about this before. They try and take their slice of the pie that is there on the table right now, rather than getting the ingredients together to bake a giant pie that everyone can have a good old feast on in the future. And that brings me to the Tier 2 nations, because not only will the Nations Championship, again, potentially, I'm open to the idea. I'll wait and see how it goes, so I'm not writing it off, but I worry that it will devalue the World Cup. I regret the fact that I won't get to see those traditional tours anymore. That's part of the reason why I went to South Africa for the Ireland v South Africa matches, because that's it could be the last of the tours, and that was only 2 games, not even a 3-game tour. So I kind of regret that. But would that £800 million that comes in from Qatar, would Portugal see a penny of that? Would Spain get any benefit from it? Georgia, the USA, Fiji, Uruguay. This is where rugby's focus needs to be if we actually want to grow the game, I think. If you think 20, 30 years in the future, if I could wave a magic wand and just get a wish granted, I would say I want to arrive at a Rugby World Cup where 10 or 12 teams could win. If you turn up to a Rugby World Cup where 10 or 12 teams could win the Rugby World Cup, that is going to be worth mega money. People are going to want to sit and watch that. The jeopardy, the competition. If you don't get mismatches when you get to a Rugby World Cup, if there's upsets, if a small nation could go on and win it, it would be incredible for the sport, the story, the spectacle. And that's what rugby doesn't have. And that's where I think rugby's focus needs to be. And we've got a perfect opportunity, given the fact that the Rugby World Cup's going to be in the USA in 2031. Why are we talking about the finals weekend going to Qatar? Yes, fine. As I say, I accept the money's good. But is rugby going to become a big sport in Qatar? Or are we just extracting cash? And if we were just extracting cash from Qatar, I'm sympathetic to that, as I said. Do you really believe that money is going to be spread to grow the game? Or do you have your suspicions that it could end up in the pockets of people in the unions that already have the money and already have the profile and the prestige? So, look, it would be easy for me as an England fan to just go, yeah, take the cash, make England better. Actually, and this is what it's going to require. I think for rugby to get where I'd love it to get by 2031, some turkeys have got to vote for Christmas. And the door has got to be opened to these nations, and some real work's got to be done to invest in countries like the USA, like Portugal, like Georgia, like Uruguay. And so, yeah, take the Nations Cup finals to America. Take it to Spain. Take it to Uruguay. What that would be a good way to help spread some of the money and take it to a new place where you could actually help grow the game. I suppose the only irony would be if you did take it to the USA, you're like, yeah, Nations Championship finals weekend in the USA. By the way, USA, you can't take part in this tournament. They're talking about promotion relegation in 2030. But again, call me cynical. Hope it happens. Believe it when I see it. There's some thoughts of mine on this topic. For what it's worth, and just to wrap up, I don't reckon there's lawsuits coming. I don't reckon. There might be some people disappointed about the outcome and regretting that everyone couldn't agree. But what's new there in rugby? I think this is probably a bit clickbait, and there's no suing each other. There's no demanding compensation. There's just a back to the drawing board. Let's come up with a solution that's right for rugby. What do you think that is? Comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.